I work nights, 12-hour shifts at the shipping yard 3 towns over. It's not glamorous, but it keeps the lights on and food in the fridge. I've been doing it for years. My wife, Jenna, works part-time at the school and takes care of the house. My son, Mason, just turned 7. Bright kid, doesn't lie. That's what made his words at breakfast hit me like a freight train. It was a Thursday morning. I came home just after 6, like always. Kicked off my boots at the door, tried not to wake anyone. Mason was already up, sitting at the kitchen table with a bowl of dry cereal and his favorite dinosaur pajamas on. He looked at me, blinking slow like he wasn't sure if I was real yet. "Hey, buddy," I said, ruffling his hair. "You're up early." He shrugged. "I was waiting for you. Everything okay?" He nodded, then paused like he was trying to decide if what he'd seen was a dream or real life. "Daddy," he said quietly, "who was the man that put Mommy to bed last night?" I stopped mid-pour as the coffee overflowed the cup and ran down the side of the counter. "What man?" Mason looked down at his cereal. He had a big coat and talked really soft. He closed Mommy's door and told her to rest. I think he thought I was asleep. I wiped the counter with a paper towel, heart pounding like it was trying to punch through my ribs. I knelt down so I could look him in the eye. "Where were you when you saw this?" "I had a bad dream. I went to get Mommy, but the door was open just a little. I saw him hug her. Then he turned off the light. And you're sure he wasn't on the TV or something?" He shook his head. "He was real. I saw his truck outside too. It was big, red, and loud. That's when the cold really hit me. Red truck, loud engine. There's only one guy in our whole neighborhood with a truck like that, and I'd seen it parked 2 blocks over before. Usually outside Ronnie Field's place. Ronnie, the local mechanic with too much time, too many tattoos, and a smile that always felt just a little too familiar when I brought Jenna around. I didn't say anything, just stood up, poured another cup of coffee, this time without spilling it, and tried to calm the fire building in my chest. Later that morning, when Jenna came downstairs in her robe, smiling like nothing was wrong, I kissed her on the forehead and asked if she slept well. She said yes. Said she just stayed up reading. Said nothing about a man in a big coat. Said nothing about Ronnie. I didn't push. Not yet. Because if there's one thing I've learned from working the docks all these years, it's that when something starts to stink, you don't announce it. You follow the smell. That whole day, I moved through life like I was watching myself from the outside. Jenna cleaned the kitchen, hummed along with the radio, and packed Mason's lunch like everything was normal. But it wasn't. I'd seen her lie before, small things, like saying she paid a bill when she hadn't, or pretending to like a gift she clearly didn't, but never like this. This was rehearsed, precise. It wasn't the behavior of someone slipping. It was the behavior of someone who thought they'd gotten away with it. I watched her closely. She didn't flinch when Mason asked if we could get pancakes this weekend. Didn't even blink when I casually mentioned a red truck I'd seen out front. Just raised an eyebrow and said, "Oh, probably one of the neighbors." "Sure, Jenna. Just a random red truck, with a loud engine, that your 7-year-old son remembers vividly." I didn't say anything though. Not yet. Instead, I played the part she expected. Tired husband, long hours, coffee in hand, emotionally checked out. And maybe I had been, for a while. Maybe the long shifts made me blind to what was right in front of me, but not anymore. That afternoon, I made a quiet call to a friend of mine, Terry, ex-military, now working private security. He owed me a favor from back when I helped him get a job at the dockyard. I told him I needed a camera installed, discreet, no questions asked. He didn't ask any. By 8 p.m. that night, there was a small, motion-triggered device inside our living room light fixture and another tucked into the corner of the hallway near the bedrooms. Nothing fancy. Just enough to see who was in the house while I was gone. Enough to prove my kid wasn't dreaming. I kissed Jenna goodbye, like always, grabbed my thermos, and headed out to work. But I didn't go to the yard. I parked 2 blocks down in a borrowed van with blackout curtains and waited. I had eyes on my house. A clear view of the driveway. Nothing happened for the first hour. Then 2. I almost started doubting myself. Maybe Mason had dreamed it after all. But at 10:43 p.m., the red truck rolled up. It idled in front of my house for a full 30 seconds before pulling into the driveway. I recognized the figure stepping out instantly, Ronnie, wearing that same faded army green jacket he always wore. He didn't knock, just walked up to the front door and let himself in with a key. A key. My jaw clenched so tight I thought my teeth might crack. I watched the timestamp roll by. He didn't leave. Not after 10 minutes. Not after 30. By midnight, I was still sitting in that van, gripping the steering wheel like it owed me something. I didn't storm in, didn't call. I just sat in the dark, watching, breathing, letting the weight of betrayal settle where love used to live. Because sometimes it's not the lie that breaks you. It's the silence that follows it. Title: My son said he saw a stranger tucking his mom into bed while I worked the night shift. I got home just after 6, same as always. The red truck was gone. The lights were off. The only sound in the house was the fridge humming and Mason's soft snoring through the cracked door of his room. Jenna was in the kitchen, barefoot, wearing one of my old t-shirts like she always did on Fridays. She smiled when she saw me. No guilt in her eyes. No hesitation. Just that same sweet, practiced calm. "You're home early," she said, pouring coffee like she hadn't just let another man walk out of our house 5 hours earlier. "Slow night at the yard," I said. "Weather's messing up the deliveries." She nodded, leaned against the counter. "Well, I'm glad you're back." Mason had trouble falling asleep. Said he heard something outside. I looked at her. He probably did. She raised an eyebrow. "You check the cameras?" She said it casually. So casually, I almost didn't catch the slip. I hadn't told her about any cameras. She caught herself too late. Her lips parted like she was going to explain, but nothing came out. I kept my tone level. "What cameras?" She smiled again, smaller this time. "Didn't you say the neighborhood group was thinking about installing some around the block?" I nodded slowly, filing the panic behind her eyes in the back of my mind. "Yeah, they mentioned it." We didn't say much else that morning. She packed Mason's lunch, asked about my schedule, and acted like we were still living in the same reality. But I wasn't playing along anymore. Later that day, after she took Mason to school and left for a nail appointment, I pulled the SD cards from both cameras, slid them into my laptop. I watched the footage from the night before on mute, jaw locked tight. There he was, Ronnie, letting himself in, kicking off his boots like he belonged here, walking straight down the hall. At 11:12 p.m., Jenna met him in the hallway in a black silk robe. At 11:14, they went into our bedroom. At 12:03, the light went off. I stared at the screen, not blinking, not breathing. She didn't hesitate, not once. No one watching that footage would think she was trapped, manipulated, confused. She was home, with him. At 12:46, he left the room, used our bathroom, poured himself a glass of orange juice from my fridge, and kissed her on the forehead before leaving. She watched him from the door, smiling. She smiled. I closed the laptop, placed it gently on the table, and sat in silence for a long time. It wasn't just betrayal. It wasn't just infidelity. It was how comfortable she was with it, how little she flinched knowing our son might see. I wasn't going to scream, or throw things, or confront her with heat. That would only burn fast and die out just as quick. No, this needed to be slower, colder, smarter. Because when someone treats your home like it belongs to someone else, you don't just take it back. You remind them whose name is on the damn foundation. By the time Jenna got home that afternoon, I had already made my decision. No more sitting, no more waiting, no more pretending I didn't see what was right in front of me. The footage was burned into my mind, every second of it. Ronnie walking barefoot through my hallway like he owned it. Jenna smiling like that wasn't our bedroom, like that wasn't our bed. She walked through the front door with a grocery bag and that same easy, guilty smile. "Hey babe," she said. "I picked up dinner stuff. Thought I'd make that stir fry you like." "You talked to Ronnie lately?" I asked flat. The bag paused midair. She blinked. "Ronnie?" "From down the block." I stared her down. "Yeah, that Ronnie." She gave a light laugh, forced. "No, why would I talk to him?" "Just asking," I said. "His truck was parked near the school earlier." She shrugged. "Too quick. Could be anyone. Lot of red trucks in this town." "Sure, Jenna." And they all walked barefoot into my kitchen, too. I didn't press. Just helped her unpack the bag. Inside was chicken, vegetables, noodles, soy sauce. She really was planning to cook. That's what got to me most. The normalcy. She was playing house while burning it down from the inside. Later that night, after Mason went to bed and she was showering upstairs, I drove to Ronnie's place. I didn't knock. I didn't park out front either. I left my truck around the corner and walked the last 100 yards with my fists balled up like stone. His lights were on. His garage door was cracked open. I stepped inside. Tools hung neatly on the walls. Classic rock played low from a speaker. His workbench was cluttered, greasy, but everything had its place. He didn't see me until I was 10 feet away. "Jesus, Colton," he said, wiping his hands. "You almost made me." "Shut up." He paused, straightened. His jaw tensed just a bit. "What's this about? You really want me to say it?" I asked, out loud. He stared at me. I took a step closer. "You've been in my house, in my bed, with my wife. You really want to pretend like it didn't happen?" He sighed, like he was the one inconvenienced. "Look, I didn't mean for it to go that far." "You didn't mean for it?" I repeated, stepping forward again. He held up a hand. "Hey, don't do something you'll regret, man." "Oh, I won't regret a damn thing," I said. But I didn't swing. Not yet. Instead, I pulled my phone from my pocket, tapped the screen, and hit play. Footage of him walking into my house, timestamp and all, filled the air between us. His face went pale. "You got this on camera?" I nodded. "And it's backed up. What do you want?" I smiled cold. "You're going to disappear. Block her. Ghost her. No goodbyes, no warning. She'll think you bailed on her. And if I ever see your truck near my house again, I will do something I regret. And I won't stop at you." His throat worked as he swallowed. "Deal." He nodded. I turned around and walked out, not looking back. I wasn't done yet. But this was the first move in a much bigger game. Jenna didn't notice a thing. The next morning, she was humming again in the kitchen, flipping pancakes and acting like we were some sitcom couple on a Sunday morning. Mason sat at the table, spooning syrup over his plate like it was just another day. But things had changed. I'd put the ball in motion. Ronnie's silence wasn't the end. It was the opening act. I needed to know how far this went, how long it had been going on. 1 night, 2, a week, a month. That didn't happen by accident. That kind of familiarity only came from routine, from practice. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I opened Jenna's laptop. It was unlocked. She always said she had nothing to hide. And at one time, I believed her. I checked the browser history. Nothing. Clean as a whistle. Too clean. I opened her email. Same story. But when I clicked into her photo cloud, I hit something unexpected. A hidden album, titled Miscellaneous. Inside were photos that didn't belong. Screenshots of texts, snaps of roads I didn't recognize. A selfie she took in her car, smiling, makeup fresh, with a caption that read, "On my way, finally." The timestamp? A night I worked late, and she said she was sick and needed to rest. There were no pictures of Ronnie, nothing obvious, but she'd covered her tracks well, too well, and that made me wonder, what if this wasn't her first time doing this? I clicked back, scanning through older folders. One stood out, labeled simply May. We were having problems that month. Small things, distance, arguments over schedules. She said she needed space, said she wanted time to figure things out. We didn't speak much for a couple days. Inside the folder were hotel confirmations, one-night bookings, 2 towns over, different names on the reservation, different email. She'd created a burner account. I sat back in the chair, numb. I don't know what hurt more, that she'd done this, or that she'd put effort into it. Real effort, careful, deliberate deceit. It wasn't just Ronnie. It had been others. This wasn't one mistake. This was a pattern, a side of her I never saw coming. When she came into the room, I was still at the desk, laptop closed, coffee gone cold. "You okay?" she asked. I nodded once. "Just tired." She kissed my head. "I'll take Mason to the park for a bit. Give you space." I didn't answer, just watched her grab her keys, call Mason from the hallway, and walk out the door like nothing was wrong. When the house went quiet, I reopened the laptop and copied everything. Photos, screenshots, reservation details. All of it. Then I opened a blank document and started typing. It wasn't rage that guided me. It was clarity. She'd built a second life inside our home. Now it was my turn to burn it all down, the right way. The first thing I did was call a lawyer. Not just any lawyer, the lawyer, Greg Hanley, the kind of guy who doesn't ask why you're calling, only when you can come in. A divorce specialist with a reputation for being surgical, ruthless, and expensive. Exactly what I needed. We met the next day at his office. Brick building, frosted windows, leather chairs that felt more like interrogation seats than anything comforting. "I want to file quietly," I said. Greg raised an eyebrow. "Quiet's rare in this line of work. You looking for custody?" I nodded. "Full. She can visit, but I want primary." He scribbled something down. "You got proof?" "Plenty." I handed him a flash drive. Everything I'd pulled from the laptop, plus the footage of Ronnie's little visit. He plugged it into his computer, scrolled through a few files, then sat back in his chair and let out a low whistle. "Well," he said, "she's not just cheating, she's putting in overtime." "Yeah," I muttered. "I noticed." He explained how we'd approach it. File without notice, serve her at a neutral location, get an emergency custody hearing on the books fast. If we could catch her unprepared, the odds of me keeping Mason full-time were strong, especially with the footage, the hotel receipts, the hidden photos. The plan was clean, cold, effective, and it still didn't make me feel better. I got home that evening before Jenna and Mason. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at a family portrait on the dresser. One of those corny matching flannel photos we took last fall. She looked happy. Mason looked pure. I looked like a man who didn't know what was coming. She'd made me into a ghost in my own home, and I was finally ready to stop haunting it. When they got back, she kissed my cheek and told me about the ducks at the park. Mason ran into the living room with a pine cone in his hand like it was treasure. "Found it by the water," he said. "It's for you." I took it, kneeling down. "Thanks, buddy." He looked at me with those big, honest eyes. Is mommy in trouble? The question hit like a gut punch. Why would you ask that? He shrugged. You don't look at her like before. And you sleep on the couch more now. Smart kid. I didn't lie. But I didn't tell him the full truth either. Sometimes grown-ups have to fix hard things, I said. But no matter what, I've got you. Okay. He nodded slowly. Okay. That night, I stayed in bed next to Jenna. She curled into me like she always did, unaware that the papers were already being drawn, that the foundation under her feet had already cracked. She whispered, I love you, as she drifted off. I didn't say it back. I just stared at the ceiling, counting the hours until the papers hit her hands. Because she may have broken my trust, but I was about to break her world. 2 days later, the papers were ready. Greg had arranged everything: time, location, process server. Jenna had a hair appointment that Saturday afternoon at a boutique salon downtown. It was perfect, public, neutral, and just enough distance from Mason so he wouldn't see it happen. I handed off the final documents that morning, then sat in my truck outside the house, gripping the steering wheel like it was the last stable thing I had left. She came out just after 1, wearing jeans and that white blouse I bought her for our anniversary 2 years back. She looked beautiful, casual, untouchable. It made me sick. I'll be back in a couple hours, she said, leaning in through the window. I nodded. Drive safe. She smiled and pulled away. I waited a beat, then texted Greg. She's on the way. 15 minutes later, I got the reply. Served. It's done. That should have been the moment I felt peace, relief, vindication. But instead, I just sat there. Because for all the fury I felt, for all the betrayal, I once loved that woman. Deeply, stupidly. Enough to build a life, a family, a future. And even though she shattered that, the wreckage still had my name on it. By the time she got home, the storm had already broken. The front door slammed harder than usual. I heard her heels clack across the tile, then stop cold. She saw the empty counters. I'd cleared everything I ever bought for this house: tools, framed photos, even the chair I refinished by hand. All gone, packed and stored. Colton, she called out. What the hell is this? I stepped out of the hallway, calm as ice. You got served. She blinked. What? Divorce. Custody. Full. You've got 30 days. Her mouth opened, then closed. You blindsided me. You ambushed me. I laughed bitterly. You ambushed our marriage the day you handed another man a key to my house. I didn't. Don't. I cut her off. Don't insult me more by pretending. I've got everything. Video, messages, screenshots. This wasn't one bad choice, Jenna. It was a campaign. Her voice cracked. What about Mason? He stays with me. You can see him on weekends. We're going to keep it civil for his sake. She took a step forward, her voice turning sharp. You can't do this without talking to me first. I just did. The silence after that was thick. Her eyes burned with a mix of rage and disbelief. She'd never imagined I'd fight back. Not like this. She thought she could get away with it quietly, like it was just a chapter in her story she could close without consequence. But this was real life. And in real life, choices come with a price tag. I loved you, she whispered. I nodded. I know. But you didn't love me enough to stay loyal. She didn't reply. Just turned, walked upstairs, and closed the door. And I stood there in the silence she left behind, knowing I'd finally taken my life back. The days that followed were quiet, too quiet. Jenna barely came out of the bedroom. Meals went untouched. The TV stayed off. She was living like a ghost in a house she no longer recognized, walking through it like a guest trying not to make noise. Mason noticed. Of course he did. Is mommy sick? He asked one night as I tucked him in. She's just sad, I told him. Sometimes people get sad when things change. He nodded, then hesitated. Is she going away? Not forever, I said, brushing his hair back. She'll still be around, just in a different way. He didn't push. He just hugged me tighter. That Friday, I took a half day off work to meet with Greg again. We were pushing the court hearing forward. The more I dug through Jenna's old files, the more names came up: contacts, flirtations, shady travel bookings. This thing with Ronnie wasn't a one-off. It was a pattern, a lifestyle. The court needed to see it, and I wanted it locked in stone. She wasn't going to take my son away from me. When I got home, the house was empty. Jenna's car was gone. The bedroom door stood open. I scanned the room: closet halfway cleared, drawers half empty. She was packing. A single manila envelope sat on the kitchen counter with my name written across the front in her handwriting. I opened it slowly. Inside was a folded note. I won't fight you. Not in court. You win. Keep Mason safe. Tell him I love him. Jay. No arguments. No outburst. No final plea. Just surrender. I stood there, staring at those words, and I didn't know whether to feel victory or loss. She'd given up completely, walked away from her own son, not because she didn't care, but because, somewhere deep down, she knew she'd already failed him, and I wasn't sure if that made it easier or worse. That evening, As the sun dipped behind the trees, I sat on the back porch with Mason. He played with toy cars at my feet, pushing them through little paths in the dust. "Where's Mommy?" he asked without looking up. I looked out at the yard, hands clasped. "She had to go take care of some things," I said. "But you're staying here with me now." "Okay." He looked up at me. "Forever." I nodded. "Forever." He smiled, simple and soft, then went back to his toy cars like that was all the answer he needed. And in that moment, I realized something. All the anger, the betrayal, the late nights filled with doubt, and the early mornings thick with dread, none of it mattered anymore. Because I had him. Because he was watching me now. And whatever came next, I had to be the kind of man my son believed I already was. The house changed after she left. Not in the obvious ways, not furniture or paint, but in the feel of it. The tension had evaporated. No more footsteps down the hallway at midnight. No more whispered phone calls from the bathroom. No perfume lingering in the kitchen hours after she'd gone to run errands. Just me and Mason. In silence that didn't feel like punishment. We started new routines. I made breakfast, he set the table. Saturday mornings became waffle days. Sunday nights, we watched old cartoons on the couch until he nodded off with his head against my arm. There was peace in that. In rebuilding something with just us two. But even peace is shadows. I got a call from Greg. "Jenna never filed a response," he said. "That speeds things up. We should have the hearing in less than a week. Custody looks strong. Judges like stability." I thanked him and hung up, feeling both relieved and strangely hollow. I'd won, but it didn't feel like a victory. That same afternoon, Mason brought something to me. A crumpled piece of paper he'd found between the cushions of the couch. "Mommy wrote this," he said. "I think it's for you." I unfolded it slowly. Her handwriting, rushed, uneven. "Colton, I know you hate me, and I don't blame you. I did things that can't be undone. But there's something you need to know. It wasn't just about boredom or loneliness. Ronnie wasn't the first, but he was the only one who scared me. I tried to break it off. He didn't take it well. That night Mason saw him, I didn't invite him. He let himself in. That key wasn't mine to give. He made a copy. I didn't know how to fix it without ruining everything. I was already too far gone. Jay. My hand tightened around the paper. The footage had shown her letting him in. Had I misread it? Or had she been too afraid to say no? The smile, the robe, the comfort, it had all looked so rehearsed. But maybe it wasn't a performance. Maybe it was survival. I didn't know whether to believe her. But what I did know was this. If he had a copy of the key, if he'd entered that house without permission, after she'd tried to cut him off, then it wasn't just infidelity. It was something darker. That night, I changed every lock on every door. Windows, too. Put cameras on the back fence. Motion sensors on the driveway. Not out of paranoia. Out of principle. Out of protection. Because Jenna might have left, but the danger hadn't. And if Ronnie ever thought he still had a place in my home, he was going to find out the hard way. This house had new rules now. The final court date came on a Monday. Gray skies. Light rain. A fitting backdrop for the end of something that had started in sunlight but died in shadow. I wore a pressed shirt, clean boots, kept my voice steady, and let the evidence speak louder than anything I could say. Jenna didn't show. Her lawyer came alone, handed the judge a signed affidavit. She wasn't contesting anything. Full custody to me. No alimony. No division fights. Just one line, scrawled at the bottom of the paperwork in her handwriting. Let him raise our son right. That was it. No apology. No emotion. But maybe it was the closest thing to both. When I walked out of that courthouse, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt clear. Like someone had finally opened the window in a smoke-filled room. Mason was waiting at home with my sister. He didn't know the details. He didn't need to. He just knew he had me. And for now, that was enough. That night, after he went to bed, I sat on the back porch alone, nursing a glass of bourbon, watching the wind rake through the trees. The new locks were in place. The cameras were synced, and the whole property felt tighter, safer. At least, it did, until I saw the headlights. Red truck, creeping down the street like it belonged there. I didn't move, didn't blink, just watched. The truck rolled by slowly, paused 3 houses down, then kept going. Ronnie, it wasn't over. I walked back inside, pulled the camera feeds, saved the clip. Then I made one final call to someone who'd offered help weeks ago if I ever needed more than a legal answer. "Terry, you sure?" he asked. "Yeah," I said. "No threats. No violence. Just a message." "Understood." The next morning, Ronnie's truck was gone. His house dark. No word. No texts. No return. Whatever Terry said to him, and however he said it, it worked. I don't know if Ronnie left town. I don't care. But he hasn't come back. And that's enough for me. Now? Now the house feels different. Real. Me and Mason have a rhythm. Pancakes. Movie nights. Homework at the table with crayon drawings taped to the fridge. I still work nights sometimes, but I've shifted my schedule. I'm here more. Not just in body, but in presence. And one evening, As we sat on the porch watching the sky go gold over the trees, Mason turned to me and said, "Daddy?" "Yeah, but I'm glad it's just us now." I looked at him, this little boy who saw everything before I did, and I felt something I hadn't in a long, long time. "Peace. You and me, kid," I said, ruffling his hair. "Always." And just like that, the past stayed where it belonged, behind us. Because in the end, I didn't just survive what she did. I built something better from the wreckage.